Do-do-do-do-do-do. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Wednesday, August the 14th, 2024. On the show tonight, we have some encouraging news regarding the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Board's plan to turn the entire area of Winnipeg and all of the 17 surrounding RMs into one great big concrete sinkhole. I got to be careful. I don't want to spread misinformation. I've been telling people, make sure you vet the information that you get before you share it. Make sure it's accurate. Make sure it's truthful. Check the source. Where does it come from? And if you need to, go to the website that is supposed to be responsible for putting this information out in the first place. I understand that many people went to some municipal meetings last night where they already had the agenda set. So it's a good chance, if you went to one of these meetings, that this plan, this Metropolitan Region Plan, wasn't even discussed, because these agendas get set weeks before the meetings get held. Probably the next municipal meeting will be the one where they discuss this, if they discuss it publicly at all. We understand some municipalities are discussing it, but they're doing so behind closed doors. I think it's called in camera. I forget the expression. In camera, out of camera, whatever. And they want to make sure that they get a chance to discuss this before it gets discussed with the people of their area, so they can all get on the same page, I suppose. I don't know for sure. I've never been a member of a city or town council or a mayor or a reeve or an MP or an MLA or an MPP. I only report on these things. And also, I don't like, you guys know this, I don't like to spread rumor and innuendo, but I have received at least 7 messages today from people in the surrounding area here who tell me that because they're voicing opposition to this plan, they are being threatened by certain members of their town or city council. Very interesting. Very interesting. So what we need going forward, and I've got some very good news about this coming up in just a second. What we need going forward is people who are willing to speak up publicly and actually be a spokesperson for the group in their area. We also need people out there looking for venues where we can host information meetings in every single RM that's affected, including the city of Winnipeg. So if you know that, we've got an email for you, and we're going to give you that in just a second, all right? So make sure that you listen to the entire show tonight, because it's important you guys get this information. And as you know, Winnipeg is not the only city in Canada that's affected by this. There are over 400 municipalities and cities who are being affected by the Partners for Climate Protection, ICLEI Canada, which is, of course, an offshoot of the United Nations. And we're going to give you just one of them in about 10 minutes or so. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. This toothpaste, it's absolutely amazing. It's naturally whitening, my friends, and no chemical additives whatsoever. It helps keep your teeth clean. Triple Action Nano Silver, the power of SilverCeutical technology. SilverCeuticals is made from only the highest quality ingredients. This unique toothpaste is kid safe, and actually, it's not just kid safe. We can go further. It's a kid's favorite, man. That bubbleberry, again, keep it away from them. They'll be brushing their teeth 15 times a day. Kid safe, uses powerful natural ingredients. Triple Action Nano Silver helps clean your teeth and promotes healthy teeth and gums. And then above ground mined coral calcium helps to scrub and remineralize your teeth. Remineralize, like regrow? What? Seriously? No. You can read more about it on the website. You can go and order these products on the website, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. The toothpaste comes in spearmint, in cinnamon, and again, that kid's favorite flav, bubbleberry. If you're looking for a retail location near you, then check out the retail locations tab in the upper right-hand corner. And if you would like to be a retailer of these awesome products yourself, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. I haven't done this in a while, so I'm going to go and say some hellos. I've been trying to get right down to the meat and potatoes of the show, but tonight we have a little extra time. It's just us, you guys. There's no guest coming on the show tonight, so we can take our time here. Hello, Soshida, who is watching in Kingston, Ontario, and Maria is watching in London, Ontario. Mike is watching in New Bothwell, Manitoba, where they make the cheese. Hello, Kev, watching up in St. Andrews. Bev is watching from somewhere in Riding Mountain National Park. Oh, wait a minute. She's from Riding Mountain National Park, but watching from the beautiful Sunshine Coast in British Columbia. Hello, Regina in southeastern Ontario. Vivian is watching tonight. Hello, everyone. Wish I could share this, but I'm on the 3rd dead book restriction in 2 weeks. Oh, my God. You've been a bad, bad girl. Evelyn's watching tonight. Lorna in southeast Saskatchewan. Hello, Colleen, watching in Madoc, Ontario. Evelyn's watching in the Stash. By the way, Hamilton lost a radio station today. It just went dark, just like that. Owned by Chorus Entertainment, whose stock has plummeted to, I think it's 10 cents a share right now. They're the owners of the Global News Network across the country. And they also own a few talk radio stations, news talk radio stations in major cities. They own CKNW in Vancouver. They own QR77 or QR770 as they're called now in Calgary. They own Ched in Edmonton. I think Ched went dark. I might be mistaken on that. They own CJOB in Winnipeg. They own 900 CHML in Hamilton, and they just went dark. Now, that radio station has been a part of that community for 80 years. People grew up with that. And even if they didn't listen to it, their parents listened to it. It's gone. It's gone. The people that work there, jobless. And they weren't even warned, not even 15 minutes in advance. The station just went dark as of noon Eastern time today. It sounded like, according to the description by Joe Warmington in the Toronto Sun, it sounded like the noon news was set to come on and then static. So the guy sitting there must have been going, are we on the air? Can you check if we're on the air? Went dark. And then the company released an email talking about how sad they were to lose one of their flagship radio stations. Let me just say this. This is going to keep happening with this company, and maybe Rogers, maybe Bell as well. They own the radio stations, Pattison too, all across the country. Rogers, did I say Rogers? Okay, if I did, I'm sorry. I don't want to repeat myself here. But these radio stations are going to keep closing. People are going to keep losing their jobs, and I can't help but think that if only they had decided they were going to report the truth, or at the very least both sides of the story starting 5 years ago, they wouldn't be in the shape they're in today. And they might actually even be thriving. Because there is no left-wing corporate media in this country that went against the narrative. In the United States, you have a few, mostly online. But here in Canada, with C18 and C11 and coming up C63, the online radio stations or shows like this one may be a thing of the past if Justin Trudeau has his way. We have news on Trudeau coming up from the past and from the present. Poilievre coming up from the past and the present. Stephen Harper even. The Liberals are blaming Stephen Harper for allowing ISIS terrorists into the country and accepting them as citizens. They're blaming Stephen Harper, who hasn't been the prime minister in, 9 years. They're blaming him. It's his fault. It's Harper's fault. Hello, everybody on Rumble. Hello, everybody on YouTube. Hello, everybody on Facebook and X. And, of course, shadowdavis.com, where the extension will be happening after 9 o'clock Central tonight. All of the extra information that we don't get on the regular social media channels. So like and share. Get this out to as many people as we possibly can. Let's make this heard, especially in the Winnipeg area today and especially in the Calgary area. You guys don't know yet, do you? It seems to be flying under the radar in Calgary. I think it has everything to do with the water problems that you're having there, but anyway, we'll get to that. Here is some news regarding the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Board's plan, an important update on our opposition to the WMR Plan 2050, and this comes from Manitoba Stronger Together, the website hosted by Ken Drysdale. We all know Ken, we all love Ken. As a matter of fact, I think Ken should probably run for premier in Manitoba. So this is what Ken tells us. Dear Manitoba Stronger Together members, we had planned on taking a much-needed rest this summer after the big event in Beausejour in June. But recent developments have necessitated us to get back a little earlier than we had hoped. I know Ken was out in the bush the other day just enjoying time alone. We all need that at this stage of the game. I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to take this opportunity to update you on our ongoing efforts to oppose the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Plan 2050. As many of you know, a group of us within Manitoba Stronger Together, MST, and other freedom groups have come together to actively challenge this plan and its implications. Recent activities? We were encouraged to see many of our members attend the recent public meeting in Winnipeg, and it was disappointing for us all when the meeting in Niverville was canceled despite the strong turnout. These events have only reinforced our commitment to ensuring that our voices are heard and that this plan is thoroughly scrutinized. New webpage for Winnipeg Metropolitan Region information. To better equip all of our members with the information needed to understand and counteract the WMR Plan 2050, we're adding a dedicated webpage to the main website. So that's manitobastrongertogether.ca. There's going to be an additional page on that website where you can go for all of the information. It'll be updated as required. So again, manitobastrongertogether.ca. Make sure you put that into your browser and make sure you put it into your favorites. Pertinent information, copies and links to bylaws, provincial statutes, the 2050 plan, and other essential documents. And Ken is one of these guys. He's a statistical engineer. He breaks this stuff down like nobody's business to the point where it's very difficult to understand, but he's very good. He's very good at making it understandable for the layman like us, the lay person. Discussion and updates, regular updates and discussion on developments related to the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Board. We're also in the process of developing a custom GPT tool that will allow you to quickly access information and get clear answers about what's happening with the WMR plan. The details you need to know are not just included in the 2050 plan itself. You also need to read the bylaws and procedure document, the Planning Act amendments, and the City of Winnipeg Transportation Plan, among other plans, to understand what this thing really is. We're putting together all the information with guidelines, videos, and short take information for you, and this is taking a little time to get done. These kinds of plans are being implemented throughout Manitoba and across Canada, as I've been telling you. There's been little opposition to them, as most Canadians simply don't know about them. They're not aware. Criticism of the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Plan 2050 encompasses a range of concerns from various stakeholders. These criticisms can be summarized as follows. Number one, impact on property rights. Critics argue the Plan 2050 may infringe on property rights by imposing stricter land use regulations. This could limit the ability of property owners to develop or use their land as they see fit. Number two, freedom of movement. There are concerns the plan could restrict freedom of movement by promoting higher density living and reducing reliance on personal vehicles. This shift might make it difficult for individuals who prefer or need to live in less densely populated areas. Number three, central bank digital currency. The plan's potential alignment with broader digital transformation initiatives, including the adoption of CBDC, has raised fears about increased government surveillance and control over personal finances. Critics worry about privacy and the potential for misuse of financial data. Number 4, alignment with the UN 2030 agenda. This is a big one. Some groups are critical of the WMR Plan 2050 for its perceived alignment with the UN 2030 agenda and concepts like 15-minute cities. They argue these global initiatives could lead to local policies that prioritize environmental and social goals over individual freedoms and economic flexibility. It is mentioned clearly in the plan, their alignment with the UN Plan 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Economic and social implications. There is apprehension about the economic impact of the plan, particularly on small businesses and local economies. The shift towards a more centralized, regulated approach might disadvantage smaller enterprises compared to larger corporations that can more easily comply with new regulations. And number 6, public participation and transparency. Critics have also highlighted issues with the public participation process, claiming the development and implementation of the plan lacked sufficient input from a broad range of stakeholders. We, ultimately, all of us, are the stakeholders. They argue that greater transparency and community engagement are necessary to ensure that the plan truly reflects the needs and desires of the region's residents. These criticisms reflect a broader concern about the balance between regional planning and individual rights, the potential for increased government control, and the need for greater public involvement in the planning process. Here are the municipalities included in the plan and the cities. City of Winnipeg, City of Selkirk, Town of Stonewall, Town of Niverville, the RM of East St. Paul and West St. Paul, Springfield, Headingley, Richot, I've heard it pronounced so many different ways, let's call it Richaud, Taché, St. Andrews, St. Clements, Rosser, Rockwood, McDonald, Broken Head, Cartier, and Hanover. The WMR Plan 2050 has been a significant regional planning initiative, yet its public hearing process has faced substantial criticism. The main concerns revolve around the lack of public awareness, transparency, and meaningful exchange of ideas. Here's a detailed examination of these criticisms. Lack of public awareness, insufficient outreach, lack of transparency and true exchange of ideas, restricted participation, COVID-19 restraints, that's a big one under Section 2, undemocratic process. Call for a pause and a reevaluation. Given the magnitude of the issues at hand, there should be a pause of at least a year to allow for a more comprehensive and inclusive public discussion. This pause would enable a thorough reevaluation of the plan and foster a democratic dialogue. I don't think they're interested in that. I don't think they're interested in discussion or debate, obviously, with the tactics they've been using so far. Proposed referendum. How about that? That's a good idea. They did a stupid referendum on opening Portage and Main to foot traffic a couple years ago. That was a dumb one. This is huge. It involves the entire city and all of the surrounding areas, roughly 900,000 people or more. A referendum on Plan 2050 should be considered to ensure the plan truly reflects the will of the people. Engaging the public through a referendum would provide a legitimate and transparent means to gauge public support. They'll never do that. You want to know why? Because they know they'll lose. Enhanced engagement with rural municipalities. Special efforts must be made to engage residents of rural municipalities, many of whom are currently completely unaware of this plan. Town hall meetings, informational campaigns, and outreach programs should be conducted in these areas to ensure that all affected communities have a say. In conclusion, the public hearing process of this plan has faced substantial criticism because of a lack of public awareness, transparency, and meaningful exchange of ideas. The restrictions during the COVID-19 lockdown further compounded these issues, making it impossible to gather representative public input. We are planning to hold public information sessions across all communities affected by the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region Plan. Additionally, we're requesting meetings with various councillors, mayors, and reeves, as it appears that even some of our elected officials are not fully aware of the details contained in the 2050 plan. There are broader implications. You can read more about this on the website, manitobastrongertogether.ca. Please share this information if you can. And if you have any questions or you would like to volunteer your services or your time to helping get these information sessions going, whether it means finding a hall we can book, getting donations together, getting pamphlets and brochures together, whatever it is you think that you can do, please email Ken Drysdale at manitobastrongertogether.ca to volunteer. Ken Drysdale at manitobastrongertogether.ca. The email will be on the website. Again, manitobastrongertogether.ca. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken Lee. Thank you, Christine Ronseray. Thank you, everybody. Rick Wall down in Winkler, not part of this plan, at least not yet, but you know that if this thing is hammered through, that the rest of Manitoba will definitely fall to it at some point. Brandon is also planning a Clean City. Their Clean City Plan meetings are coming up. I think it's next week, Monday night, 7 o'clock, Brandon City Hall. So get out there and have your say. We have more positive information here. This comes from the town of Niverville's City Council regarding their official response to Plan 2050. Niverville, of course, is part of the plan, which, by the way, is about 7,000 people. It's tripled in size over the last 15 years. It's incredible. The town of Niverville has consistently expressed concerns related to our forced involvement in the Winnipeg Metro region and subsequently the proposed 2050 plan. The town of Niverville Council does not support this plan without a significant amendment or amendments to protect the interests of Niverville. While the town continues to work and advocate for changes, the following barriers remain. Forced membership with no exit clause. As noted in multiple media stories and at multiple council meetings over the past few years, the town of Niverville had never been a legislated member of the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region and was the only non-active member added to the Winnipeg Metro Region when Bill 37 was tabled and eventually passed by the province. Loss of autonomy. Niverville Council is concerned that Bill 37, that is the provincial bill that's going to make this a reality. Bill 37 and Plan 2050 will reduce the effectiveness of a locally elected town council to make land use planning decisions for its residents. Plan 2050 needs to be revised and further developed to ensure that final land use planning decisions remain in the hands of locally elected officials at the community level. Financial implications are involved in this. Recognition of a transition zone. And they say until such time that Niverville's needs are addressed, Town Council is not prepared to extend support to Plan 2050 in its current form. Council is advocating the province of Manitoba convene a meeting of all councils of the Winnipeg Metro region and present a plan on next steps to address the local level challenges and how they'll be implemented in an improved Plan 2050 or have the legislation repealed altogether. We also know the city of Selkirk, numbering about 15,000, is against this plan as well. So guys, we're going to keep you up to date on everything that's going on with this. In the meantime, across the country, this affects all of us. Right now, I've been focusing on Winnipeg because this is where I'm based at the moment, even though I'm not in Winnipeg all the time. I do have strong connections to the area, and I am completely and totally opposed to it. And I'm so happy and proud to see all of these disparate groups who maybe just a month ago were bickering about or at each other and backbiting and name-calling, even now, all finally starting to get together and work towards getting rid of this plan. I can't even tell you how happy and proud that makes me, so thank you for putting your differences aside and starting to work together. That is absolutely amazing. This comes right from Canada.ca, the Government of Canada website. Canada's 2030 Nature Strategy and the Nature Accountability Bill. Remember last night, or was it the night before, I showed you the U.S. Wildlands Project map? Remember that? And I was wondering, is Canada part of this? Well, of course it is. We just didn't have a map, and I couldn't find the bill that makes us part of it. If you guys want to know how to find out if your municipality, town, or city is a part of anything to do with this, then type in, this is all you do. You go to your search engine, Brave or whatever you're using. You type in the name of your city or municipality, and then either 2030, 2050, or both in the search bar, and then hit enter. And the plan will pop right up, whatever it happens to be called. We're going to show you another large metro, huge city in Canada. Their plan coming up in just a second that nobody seems to be talking about. Again, right from the Government of Canada website here. 2030 Nature Strategy. And whenever you see 2030, you know it has to do with the United Nations. Right? Agenda 2030. That's what this is. In 2022, Canada, along with 195 other countries, adopted the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework at the 15th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. This historic framework lays out a set of global goals and targets to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030, like Canada's losing a lot of biodiversity. That's the most ridiculous thing. With 40 million people and all of the land we have, that is one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard. But they say they want to put nature on the path to recovery by 2050. So blah, 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 blah. The bill has been passed. It's in effect. And I believe that this whole city strategy is part of Trudeau's ultimate thing. Plus the land use. Let's not forget about the land use. Remember about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when Chrystia Freeland made her way to Alberta to meet with town council members or city council members up near Grand Prairie, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Grand Prairie. What was she doing there? She was isolating a region in very northeastern Alberta as biodiverse restricted. And that area happens to include a lot of the oil sands. So now the oil sand people, the people can't go and drill up there because it's protected for biodiversity in Canada. Creating Canada's 2030 biodiversity strategy, again from Canada.ca, Government of Canada through Environment and Climate Change Canada. There's a department, in case you didn't know, that has to do with something that's not even proven, is responsible for leading the development of the 2030 biodiversity strategy and reporting on Canada's progress to meet the KMGBF targets. The strategy will guide how Canada plans to achieve the new global goals and targets domestically. That is what we're dealing with, my friends. That is what we're dealing with. Now, I'm not sure how many of you know about this. Calgary Climate Strategy Pathways to 2050. This is already much further along than the Winnipeg strategy is. It's probably at the same level as the Edmonton 15-minute city plan is. The Calgary strategy is this. It's the roadmap. You can download it. It's right here for anybody in Alberta. Go ahead. Calgary.ca. It's right there. It's a roadmap on how we achieve net zero and climate resilient Calgary, approved by Council July 5th, 2022. It builds on the previous strategy to align with the Council Climate Emergency Declaration to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 and adapt to our changing climate at an accelerated pace and scale. What do we mean when we say net zero emissions? Upgrading homes, switching to zero emissions vehicles, removing emissions through planting trees and other forms of carbon capture. What does it mean to adapt to our changing climate? Climate adaptation refers to actions that reduce the negative impact of climate change while taking advantage of potential new opportunities. And they go on to talk about electric cars and energy efficient homes and land use and all of the same things that they're talking about here in Winnipeg and probably talking about in Edmonton as well. If you want to know, again, if you're just tuning in right now, if you want to know if your town, your city, your municipality is involved in this, and it probably is, just type it into a search bar in your search engine. The name of your town. Let's go with Moosomin, Saskatchewan. Type it in. Moosomin, Saskatchewan, 2030, the number's 2030, and 2050. And it's amazing what's going to pop up. You'll be able to see a plan that looks just like this. We don't know what it's going to be called. Calgary's plan, for example, is just called the Calgary Plan. And then Calgary Climate Strategy, Pathways to 2050. It's not called the Complete City. I think Winnipeg's is called the Complete City. I'm not sure what Edmonton's is called. They'll never call it 15-minute city because of the negative connotations. But every single one of these plans has got its own name. They're trying to hide it. They're trying to hide it from you. They're trying to make it harder to find. And the thing about this one, though, in Calgary, they have done all kinds of public consultations already. They're done with public consultations. I think they've done 12 of them. And people don't know. I haven't heard about this. I mean, I've only been assuming for quite some time that Calgary's got a plan. Let me just get rid of these windows here, guys, so I can make some more room here. I'm going to keep the Manitoba Stronger Together up, though, because I'm going to come back to that later on in the show. We've been assuming that all of the cities and towns across the country have got one of these plans, but we haven't actually looked yet. So I went and did that this morning. I woke up at 8:30, came right to the computer. I thought, today I'm going to do some heavy-duty research. And guess what? Every single municipality, town, and city that I looked up has got one of these plans under a different name. Join Kickley Canada on Facebook. That's Maggie Hope Braun's group. She's got all kinds of strategies on how you can fight this, including finding the joining document that your municipality signed maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. The joining document your city, town, or municipality joined up with the ICLEI Canada people in order to make this happen. And then, of course, you have to look at provincial legislation, because Alberta's got provincial legislation, kind of like what Manitoba's trying to pass right now. It's already there. I'm not sure who's responsible for putting that legislation in place. It could have been Danielle Smith, might have been Jason Kenney before her, but that legislation exists. BC is almost already gone. I'm not so sure about Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritime Provinces and Newfoundland. I don't know. I haven't looked that deeply into it yet. But you guys, if you live in those areas, go ahead and check. In the meantime, we have got a brand new global emergency. It's monkeypox, or as they call it, MPOX. Here is the World Health Organization Director General, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus.
Today, the emergency committee met and advised me that, in its view, the situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice. The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of MPOX in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported MPOX, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying. In addition to other outbreaks of other clades of MPOX in other parts of Africa, it's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives.
And the world goes, hey man, look, we've got bigger things to worry about. We've got war to worry about. We've got government taking our land to worry about. We've got central bank digital currency to worry about. We've got elections to worry about. We've got a lot of things on our plate. We can't handle another worldwide emergency, pandemic for MPOX. Sorry. Monkeypox. They're calling it MPOX now, I guess because monkeypox, we all laughed at that. Monkeypox, give me a break. Get out of here with the monkeypox. From Al Jazeera. I always get a kick when I use Al Jazeera as a source. I never thought I'd ever see the day where I used Al Jazeera as a source. I mean, this was always a propaganda paper. And now it's part of the global media block. What is MPOX? Notice they're all using MPOX now. I wonder if that's a coordinated strategy. What is it? What is MPOX, and why has the World Health Organization declared it a global health emergency? Why? Happened today. For the second time since 2022, MPOX has been declared a global health emergency as the virus spreads rapidly across the African continent and risks entering others. The World Health Organization today issued its highest level of alert for this viral disease, noting that more than 14,000 cases and 524 deaths in Africa this year have already exceeded last year's figures. The announcement came a day after the CDC in Africa declared MPOX a public health emergency. So what is it? How is it transmitted? How serious is its current spread compared with previous outbreaks? Here's what you need to know. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to do this without laughing. So please excuse the outbursts. It's just going to happen. They're random. I really wish I could control it, but I can't. MPOX is a viral infection that primarily affects humans and animals. It belongs to the group of viruses classified as orthopox virus genus. This typically causes pox-like disease, which includes a rash with raised bumps or blisters on the skin. The bumps are often filled with or and can eventually crust over and heal. MPOX is similar to the now eradicated smallpox, not nearly as bad, and other pox viruses like cowpox and vaccinia. It was originally called monkeypox, but now MPOX, you see, because it's scarier. When first identified in monkeys in 1958, these captive research monkeys were in Denmark at the time. In 1970, the first reported human case was a 9-month-old boy in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In 2022, the WHO recommended updating its name to MPOX to reduce stigma, and the monkeys were all upset. It was like a microaggression against monkeys. And so they all formed a monkey coalition, complained, and they got it renamed to MPOX, as the disease can also infect rodents and humans. Why should we call it monkeypox when it can infect everybody? How is it transmitted? Well, close contact, person to person, or animal to person. That means you and every animal around you needs to wear a mask. Animal to human transmission happens through bites, scratches, direct contact with the blood, body fluids, or wounds of an infected animal. Human to human transmission, direct contact, skin lesions, body fluids, respiratory droplets of an infected person. You know what that means. They're going to try and do it again. I can guarantee you, but only if Trump wins the election. Prolonged face-to-face contact with an infected person, touching contaminated objects such as bedding or clothing that have been in contact with the infectious material, although this is a very rare mode of transmission. Enough! Enough. Here's a message from Dr. Kat Lindley. Now, she's diplomatic about what she says here, but listen to what she says, please.
In light of the spread of monkeypox across Africa, the World Health Organization is convening a special meeting to consider the monkeypox public health emergency of international concern. They have also triggered the emergency use authorization of monkeypox vaccine. What we need to know is that the monkeypox is a sexually transmitted disease with low infectivity rate and no fatal cases. So please use common sense and look at all this information that's coming from the World Health Organization with a critical eye. Thank you.
I thought you were going to say grain of salt. Look at all the information you're getting from the World Health Organization with a grain of salt. Critical eye, just the same kind of a thing. Now, friends, I will tell you this. If MPOX doesn't work for them, and if H1 or 5, N2, N8 avian flu doesn't work for them, they're going to panic. They're going to need something. And what's it going to be? Well, they've already got Plan C on the table here. This is sloth fever. This map is going to show us exactly where sloth fever is spreading across Europe and apparently South America. Brazil, some in Spain, Italy, and Germany, at least for now. It looks pretty bad according to that map, right? The countries are all red. Oh my God. Just wait. A rare virus known as sloth fever is spreading to Europe after killing at least 2 people in Brazil. 2! In a country of, what, 150 million? Oropouche virus is infecting travelers in South America, leading to fears the spread could become unstoppable. So far, 12 cases have been reported in Spain, 5 in Italy, 2 in Germany, after infectees visited Cuba and other countries in the region. Dubbed a mysterious threat in the Lancet journal, little is known about this emerging disease. The First known deaths from the virus were reported in Brazil last month, both women in their 20s. Maybe it only affects women in their 20s. All right, so how many cases? 12, did we say, in Spain, 5 in Italy, and 2 in Germany. That's a total of what, 19? Look at that. You would think there was thousands of cases. If you're looking at that map, like you look at a climate map, you see a high of 22 degrees in London in the UK, and it's all red and yellow and orange burning. It used to be nice, cool green. The victims of sloth disease were 21 and 24 years old. They suffered intense abdominal pain, bleeding, hypotension. Severe cases of the disease, which first originated in sloths and in birds, can lead to neurological disorders such as encephalitis and meningitis. Other symptoms include headaches, high temperature, muscle soreness, joint stiffness, nausea, vomiting, colds, and photophobia. What's that, fear of being photographed? I've had that my whole life. Pregnant women may suffer miscarriages or developmental issues and deformities in the fetus. I'm sure there's a reason that they're including pregnant women in this. There is currently no vaccine to treat this virus. Oh, but you can bet they'll come up with one very soon, which comes from the same family of diseases as Zika and dengue fever. Symptoms typically start 4 to 8 days after being bitten and last 3 to 6 days. No specific medicine available to cure it, and patients can only be given supportive treatment. Sloth disease, Plan C. So what's first? Avian? I think avian flu is first. That's going to be first on their list. And if that doesn't work, then it's going to be MPOX and then sloth. Or maybe they'll hit us with all of them at one time. Which one is disease X? I don't know. Pick. Doesn't matter. We've got vaccines for them all. Here you go. Get them all. Get them now. As long as you're here, roll up your other sleeve. I want to go back in time, my friends. I want to go back in time because Canada has had some recent problems taking in immigrants who were affiliated with ISIS from the Middle East. These two people, two guys making threats, two former ISIS members. I'm sure you've heard this story. They somehow wound up in Canada, somehow wound up becoming Canadian citizens, and Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are right to ask, hey, what the hell happened? What happened exactly? Well, the Liberals are blaming Stephen Harper for this. They actually have the temerity. I'll play you the video of that in just a second. They actually have the temerity to blame Stephen Harper for this. But let's go back to this debate that happened during the election period of 2015. This was the election that Justin Trudeau was the first one that he won. So let's listen to this.
It has demonstrated over the past weeks that in the case of refugees, Canada is not doing enough. And this is something that Mr. Harper has unfortunately done a number of times. I mean, he likes to talk about standing up against tyrants and dictators and against terrorists, but you know who stand up against dictators and terrorists? Families fighting to keep their family together, hoping for a better life for them. And they cross the oceans and they make it to Canada. And what does Mr. Harper do? He takes away their health care. The fact is, we need to once again be a country that is open and welcoming. Yes, we need to be concerned about security, but we don't take that as the excuse to close our doors. In years past, whether it was Joe Clark, a Conservative Prime Minister who brought in tens of thousands of Vietnamese boat people, whether it was other governments who welcomed in people who built, who contributed to this country, we need to once again be the open, generous country, not naive, making sure we're doing security right, but not using it as an excuse to do less than we should, than the vast majority of Canadians, including mayors and premiers, feel we should.
Mr. Harper, let's try and bring it back to the economy.
Yeah, well, let me just correct the record on a couple of things.
Refugees are about the economy, David.
Trudeau said about refugees. First of all, the fact of the matter is we have not taken away health care from immigrants and refugees. On the contrary, the only time we've removed it is where we have clearly bogus refugee claimants who have been refused and turned down. We do not offer them a better health care plan than the ordinary Canadian can receive.
That's
I think
not
that's something
true,
that
Mr.
most
Harper.
new and existing and old stock Canadians agree with. On the issue of refugees, this remains one of the largest countries in the world in terms of refugee resettlement, including from Syria and Iraq.
That's not true, Mr. Harper.
I have said we will bring in more, but what I have said we will not do. You know, these guys would have had in the last 2 weeks us throwing open our borders and literally hundreds of thousands of people coming without any kind of security check or documentation.
And that's
some other
not
countries
true,
have
Mr.
done.
Harper.
That would have been an enormous mistake.
See,
we're following a balanced
Mr. Harper
approach. We're bringing more refugees.
Fears,
Okay.
all the
where
time.
we're providing more
Fears of
humanitarian
others,
support.
fears of different
Thank you.
And we're
communities.
taking
We have a
on
prime
the
minister
terrorists
who
who are
prefers
bringing
to
the
pander to
refugees.
fears.
We have a prime minister who prefers to pander to fears. How about common sense and safety? What about that? Well, now that we have these 2 ISIS members who were found here in Canada, this is what Justin Trudeau has to say.
Investigations are ongoing.
And by the way, this video is from today.
And the minister will share all that we learned in the appropriate moment. But we're taking this extremely seriously because Canadians need to have confidence in our immigration system and on the millions of people who've come here over the past years to build a better life for themselves and their future. We need to make sure everything is done to keep Canadians safe.
Is the issue that you are not sure as to how this person came to Canada, or just not willing to share at this point what you know?
We are proceeding in a proper and thorough investigation on exactly how this happened, and we will share with Canadians at the appropriate moment.
How it happened? Well, we've got, I don't know, anywhere between 20,000 and 200,000 illegals running around our country. We don't even know the number. We don't know the number. How are we going to figure out how this happened? The worst thing about this entire episode, aside from the fact that we've got ISIS terrorists in our country masquerading as Canadians, actually, they're not even masquerading. We gave them that status. Well, Trudeau did. Trudeau's people did. Trudeau's policies did. The worst thing about this is I remember watching that debate between Harper and Trudeau, and there was Thomas Mulcair there in the middle saying nothing. I remember watching that when it was live and going, oh my God, Trudeau's going to win because he's playing to the heartstrings of it. Yes, of course, we need to allow more people in our country. And all of the women voted for Justin Trudeau because he was so nice and open-hearted and cute. And, oh my God, he's a dreamboat. He needs to be the prime minister. That's how it happened. That's how it happened. All of the guys, all of the actual dudes out there were looking at this guy going, this guy's going to get us killed. This guy he's going to get us in so much trouble. I was one of those guys. And I remember watching that going, we're screwed. We are so screwed. And now here we are 9 years later. And we're very close right now to what's going on in the UK with these Palestinian protests that are breaking out all over our large cities. So far, not so much out west. We've seen a little bit of it out here, mostly centered right now in places like Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa. And Trudeau, of course, is not winning politically anywhere right now with any group of people. So we know the next prime minister is going to be Pierre Poilievre. Is that going to be any better? Well, he panders too. He panders because he needs votes. Do you guys understand how many Muslims there are? How many Muslims have been let into this country in the past 10 years? There are 1.8 million Muslims in this country right now. 1.8 million. And many of them vote. And they all vote the same way. They vote as a block. Well, 95% of them do. You know how I know that? Because I speak to them. And they speak to each other. Different groups of Muslims in Calgary will speak to the Muslim groups in Vancouver. All of the head imams will speak to each other. Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, Halifax, Montreal, all the major cities. They all talk and they go, you know, who would be the best one? We're going to vote as a block. 1.8 million votes is a lot of votes. When there's only like 14 or 15 million votes cast in this country on average during a federal election. That can win or lose you an election. So, of course, there's going to be pandering from every single political leader. You can bet. You have to. If you don't, you run the risk of losing them. And the same goes for all the minority communities, because that's just the way it is in 2024 and next year, 2025. That's, of course, and I always have to point this out, if, in fact, we do get to have an election. You know who did a great piece on this today on YouTube? The Celtic Canuck did a great piece on this today in YouTube. Go and check her out. Go follow her on YouTube. The Celtic Canuck. She does some excellent work. Now, this was posted on X today by Sheila Gunn Reid. of Rebel News. Let me bring it up on the screen here for you. This is Liberal MP Jennifer O'Connell, who nobody respects. Not even the Liberal MPs respect her. Apparently, she's one of the worst MPs sitting in the House right now, and many people say she's one of the worst MPs in the history of MPs in this country. In committee, she actually had the temerity to blame the Conservatives, who've not been in power for 9 years, as I've pointed out, for allowing an ISIS terrorist featured in a terror recruitment video chopping at a crucified man with a sword to resettle in Canada with his son. Watch this.
And in fact, I am very pleased to see the Conservatives finally realize that their cuts have consequences. And previously under the Harper government, when they cut more than 1,000 CBSA employees, at the time, the president of the Customs and Immigration Union said, quote, "There will be little and in some cases potentially no investigating or surveillance being done to keep these criminals out of the country and out of our communities." Fortin also said, if the government doesn't change the course and withdraw its plan to implement these cuts, the federal government will be putting the national security and public safety of our communities at risk, end quote. This is precisely why we have been making reinvestments to staff up CBSA to deal with the previous Conservative cuts. And it's exactly why we continue to make investments through the budget.
All right. I can't take it. Why do all these Liberal cabinet ministers sound like they're 18 years old, chewing a wad of gum? You know, these totally Conservative cuts. Oh, my God. It's embarrassing. We're not a serious country. It's sad. Truly. I think the adults need to come back into the room after a very long absence. I got a comment here from Chuck, says Rebel News is compromised and not to be trusted. I do know where you're going with that, Chuck. I just can't get into it here on the social media part of the show. I might get into it a little bit during the extension on shadowdavis.com for the all access members after 9 o'clock Central. We've got another 10 minutes. So we're going to cover some more things here before we go to the extension on the website. I do know what you mean, though. I get it. And there's a few other independent media in Canada that are compromised as well. The problem is finding out exactly who's doing the compromising. This story comes from TNC.news. True North. U.S. Homeland Security has tightened rules at the Canadian border for asylum seekers. This is hilarious. They've got open borders everywhere in the United States. The southern border, they got 90,000 people rolling through there a day, apparently. But no, they're tightening the rules at the Canadian border because they think that we run the risk of being the ones exporting the terrorists to them because of that safe country agreement that was signed a few years ago. The third country, whatever. It's in the story. The U.S. has taken action to address the surge of asylum seekers using Canada as a stepping stone to enter the United States. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security made change. The Safe Third Country Agreement is what it's called with Canada. They want to change that, or they have changed that, and they've reduced the amount of time people will have to consult with a lawyer when seeking asylum at the U.S.-Canada border. These new procedural changes are akin to the ones implemented at the U.S.-Mexico border earlier this year, even though there's still people streaming through there, as I just pointed out. The department made the changes after reviewing the agreement, saying the process could be streamlined from the initial 24-hour consultation period allotted to asylum claimants to 4 hours, reducing the amount of time claimants will have to consult with a lawyer before making their case. According to the Safe Third Country Agreement, which first came into effect in 2004, Canada and the U.S. are both safe countries for those seeking asylum. However, people must make a refugee claim in the country where they first arrive. So a couple of loopholes have been closed, apparently, in this Safe Third Country Agreement, even though people continue to stream across the Roxham Road border into Canada, and now, presumably, out of Canada. I do know that there was a lot of so-called refugees streaming into Canada via Manitoba, the Pembina crossing. Well, actually, no, that's wrong. The Pembina crossing is about a mile away from the dirt road they were crawling over to get into Canada. And some of them actually even swam the Red River to get into Canada. It's crazy that these people are not actually implementing and enforcing the policy as written. It's like they want open borders. Oh my God! They want open borders. Why? I just realized. Agenda 2030, man. Open borders. Okay, this is going to be the last thing we cover before we move to the extension. Sorry, the second last thing. Canadians are more likely to believe appointing Mark Carney as finance minister would strengthen rather than weaken the Liberal Party's election chances. Many say there would be no impact. This is from Nanos and Globe and Mail poll. That was done last week, I think. Nanos research was retained by Globe and Mail, blah, 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 blah. So they wanted to see if Mark Carney, if appointed as finance minister or even as a replacement for Justin Trudeau, would improve the Liberals' chances of winning the next election. They surveyed 1,035 Canadians, and here's what they found. No. Maybe a little bit if Carney replaced Trudeau as leader. Nothing at all if they appointed him finance minister. And we know that there has been some rumblings that Trudeau's been having some problems with Chrystia Freeland. Or maybe he's not having problems. Maybe he's just trying to shuffle that cabinet like he did last year, move Freeland out of the position of finance minister and move Mark Carney in there. But this poll shows that it would have no effect on their fortunes whatsoever heading into the next election. This video goes back 3 years. Jasmine Lane reminded me of this last week. I'm not sure if you follow Jasmine on YouTube. She's got a show kind of like this one, just shorter segments. And she brought this video. I remember watching this live too, when everybody was locked down with COVID. And there were still committees, but they were doing it via Zoom. So this is Pierre Poilievre grilling Mark Carney on pipelines. Mr. Carney, how come you feel, and we understand, please, that Mark Carney is one of the biggest World Economic Forum guys out there? Even more than Freeland, even more than Trudeau. Mark Carney is a World Economic Forum guy. So here's Poilievre talking about pipelines. Mr. Carney, how come you don't want to allow pipelines in Canada, but your own company supports pipelines in Asia and Europe? And this is before Poilievre was leader, too. So let's go ahead and listen to this one.
Do you support the Prime Minister's decision to veto the Northern Gateway pipeline, Mr. Carney?
I understand the veto of the Northern Gateway pipeline.
You support it?
Given both environmental and commercial reasons.
Do you support it?
I think it was sensible. I wasn't involved in the decision, but I think it was the right decision.
And yet your company has invested billions of dollars in oil companies in both Brazil and the UAE to buy pipelines. You bought billions of dollars of pipelines as a company in the last 5 years. Do you support those investments?
Mr. Poilievre, there is a global energy system, and one of the issues, I'm trying to explain a bit of how the economy works. One of the
Thank
issues,
you so much.
Well, it may help. One of the issues for this committee in thinking about a sustainable transition.
Do you support it?
Where is Canada's role in those as energy transitions from fossil fuels to renewables, and in different jurisdictions? Into different geography, it matters. It matters,
Okay.
and this is a fundamental point.
Yeah.
No, I'm
So-
sorry. This is a fundamental. You're
so
finally
I'm sorry.
getting to,
You've
you're finally
exceeded
getting
the
to
time.
a point
You've
that
exceeded the
is
time.
relevant to this committee's
What
inquiry,
you're saying
what
is you
is the
oppose
transition
pipelines in
pathway.
Canada, but you support them in the UAE and in Brazil. That's what
There
you've
are
actually said.
specific- There are specific.
That's your double
pipelines.
standard.
It is not a double standard.
It is a
not
double standard.
No, it's not.
You
It's
make
not.
billions of
Listen,
dollars off
Mr.
foreign
Poilievre,
pipelines,
I
and you
would-
shut them
I
down
would
here at
remind
home,
you-
putting
I
our
would
people out of
remind
work.
you that you are a representative of the Canadian people, and one of your responsibilities, including at this committee,
Is to fight for Canadian jobs,
and
not
to fight
foreign
for,
jobs like you.
Exactly, to fight for Canadian jobs, and the types of Canadian jobs that are durable and are going to move forward.
Right.
I grew up in Alberta. I know the innovative, nature of that.
Well,
energy
go try to
industry.
give that answer back in Alberta, because I grew up there
I have
too, and I
many
can tell you
friends-
that people. Yeah, I can tell you the people
I
of
can tell you-
Alberta
I'll
would
tell you
be
what, that-
ashamed with the answer you just gave. That you would
That's
give.
not-
Okay. So at this point, all of the other Liberal MPs who were sitting on this committee, point of order, Mr. Chairman, point of order, and it just devolves into chaos. It's funny. I'm seeing some comments here going, oh no, not PP. Guys, what have I been saying? What have I been saying for such a long time now? We don't know if PP is compromised. I don't believe he is, but I do believe people within his inner circle may be compromised. His wife made a fortune selling PPE to the government during COVID. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But ultimately, this is the only choice we have going forward politically. Is it going to save us? You know what I'm going to say here. No, but it buys us time. That's what we need. We need to buy time. If the Liberals stay in power, just like the Democrats in the United States, it's game over. By the end of this year, maybe we'll have until next summer. Game over. I want you to get that. The right people, and what I mean by that is the people on the right, and I don't even like using right and left any longer. That's just a political idea. Two wings, same bird, all of that stuff. All right, so let's just go with this. The good people versus the evil people. The good people, like us, we need to stick together. We need to stop fighting with each other. Even after all this time, the fighting is still going on. Please stop. He's compromised. He's a double agent. Stop it. Stop it. You don't know that. How do we know you're not? It's the same thing. Please stop throwing out accusations. Do the right thing. And sometimes the right thing is to do nothing at all. If you see what I'm getting at. All right, one more thing here. And this may give you a little bit of confidence in the Conservative Party of Canada. Maybe. Conservatives rally support for a bill that bans central bank digital currency, protects cash. Okay. They don't want a central bank digital currency. Now, we know if there's going to be a central bank digital currency, it's not going to be a Canadian central bank digital currency. It's going to be a worldwide one. So this might be moot. But it also might show people that certain elements, probably the majority of the elements of the Conservative Party, are still conservatives. I think many of them don't really know what's going on. I think Michelle Ferreri's one of them. She doesn't know. I think there's a lot of them like that. The question is, does the leadership know? Are they compromised? Maybe. Maybe. And we have to get these land use agreements in the municipalities and cities and towns. We have to get those out. And that's a local fight. Federally speaking, if we can get rid of these censorship bills, if we can get rid of the CBC, if we can get rid of all of the propaganda, if we can get rid of the censorship, then we're a step ahead here. All right? Trudeau stays in, we're screwed. We need to stop fighting amongst ourselves. Just needs to stop. The Conservatives are calling on Canadians to support a bill that would protect cash and ban the government from establishing a central bank digital currency. It's called Bill C-400. The framework on the Access to and Use of Cash Act successfully passed its first reading on June the 13th. Ted Falk, a Manitoba MP for the Conservative Party. He is the bill's sponsor. He explained that Bill C-400 would create a national framework, and he's on our side, by the way. I'm not sure if you know that, but he is. He's with us. This bill would create a national framework to protect the access and use of cash in Canada. The bill would also amend the Currency Act to limit the finance minister's ability to unilaterally call in banknotes and amend the Bank of Canada Act prohibiting the bank from creating a digital currency. All right. That's all I have for you tonight on social. We're going to continue with the extension on shadowdavis.com in just a couple of minutes. So, for you members, we'll see you there in 2 minutes For those of you who are not members, you might want to consider becoming one. Go to shadowdavis.com for more information and sign up, SHADOEDAVIS.com. And if you choose to not, then I will catch you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. Love you all. Appreciate you all. See you soon. For All Access members, I'll see you in 2 minutes. Be right back.